Brothers and sisters, in Sydney we have been put into total lockdown, and for the next 2 weeks we will be doing the services, which will include the Apostles' service this Wednesday on the 30th of June, and then again next Sunday, and I'll announce subsequent services thereafter per week. And I invite you to invite others to join us live, as this is the only way that we are able to share the message of the gospel to the people around us and to our community. Today is a special day in that we celebrate All Saints' Day. The logic of All Saints' Day is that there are some saints that we know them by name, they are eponymous. And there are some saints, people who achieved or acquired a level of holiness, whom we never knew who they were or what their name was, and they were anonymous. So we have eponymous saints and anonymous saints. Those saints whom we know, and we know their story, and we've kept some record, we actually commemorate each day of the year. Each day of the year has any number of saints that are commemorated or remembered, and their stories are recounted at every service that we might do on that specific day. However, as in the case of the great martyrs, martyrs being people who were executed for being Christian. At times, for example, in the Roman era, where it was against the law to be Christian, especially because the emperor was considered a god, and by not falling into line with the imperial cult, as it was known, Christians who stood and said, "No, I will not bow to statues or idols and statues of the emperor," that wasn't going not only against the law, but was going against what was civic duty. And so many, many people were martyred, executed as breaking the law back then. Some whom, as I said, we know their name, but many we don't know their name. In Nicomedia, for example, there was a whole swathe of people, I think it was to the level of 20,000. 20,000 citizens of the city of Nicomedia were executed en masse for being Christian. That was in Asia Minor. And Nicomedia was actually a very important Roman centre, military centre. It was their base of operations in Asia Minor. So it was no accident that occurred there. The Romans really wanted to clamp down and make an example of the Christians of that provincial capital. But we remember the martyrs of Nicomedia. There's a special day later on in the year that we remember them as the 20,000 martyrs of Nicomedia. We don't know their names, but we remember them as a group. In the same logic, we celebrate All Saints' Day. It is appointed to be the Sunday after Pentecost, which is like today, and we just group all the saints together, and this grouping in Greek is called Synaxis, Synaxis meaning gathering together, Synaxis. And we remember not specific saints, but we remember their qualities, we remember their attributes, and we remember what example they gave to us so that we can follow and be inspired by their example. The appointed passage for today from the letter to the Hebrews really depicts and draws the picture for us, and I'd like to share that with you. And considering that all of you are pretty much at home now on your lounge or sitting down, I will indulge in reading most of the passage for your benefit. The passage says, "All the saints, through faith, So first attribute, through faith. Faith is the first quality of a saint. Conquered kingdoms, enforced justice, received promises, stopped the mouths of lions, quenched raging fire, escaped the edge of the sword, won strength out of weakness, became mighty in war, put foreign armies to flight. Women received their dead by resurrection. Some were tortured, refusing to accept release that they might rise again to a better life. That's the second attribute right there. That the ultimate aim, the ultimate purpose, the ultimate destination of someone who is holy and has that focus, this saintly focus, is what is beyond. What is beyond. To rise again to a better life. Others suffered mocking and scourging, that is flogging, even chains and imprisonment. They were stoned, they were sawn in two, they were tempted, they were killed with a sword. They went about in skins of sheep and goats, destitute, afflicted, ill-treated, of whom the world was not worthy. There's the third attribute of a saint, that the world is not worthy of them. There is a separation, a distinction, a drawing of the line between what is holy, what is saintly, what is according to God's will, and the worldly ways. The worldly ways being what we normally do. We seek riches, we seek wealth, we seek pleasure, we seek glory. And that's normal human behavior, yes. But a saint is someone who separates themselves from those things, because those things can end up consuming your life and consuming your soul. Which brings us to the definition of saint. The Greek word agios is actually defined as someone who is special, someone different, someone who stands out. I think that's a better way of expressing it. Someone who is not normal. Obviously, there's nothing wrong with normal, whatever that might be, whatever that might be defined as. But a saint, as defined by the ancient Greek language, is exactly what we've described thus far. Someone or any number of people who stand out from normal in terms of holiness and saintlyhood and sanctity. Let's go back to of whom the world was not worthy. The world rejects such people. The world doesn't want such people. That there is this allergy to people who seek to be holy. And while we may not achieve holiness, we shouldn't ever define holiness as perfection. It is a constant movement towards that ideal. Perfection is attained in the next life. And since the world rejects such people, what we have seen in history is that these people go about in skins of sheep and goats. They might be destitute, afflicted, ill-treated, wandering over wildernesses and mountains and in dens and caves of the earth. How many people, generation after generation, have ended up in the wilderness, separating themselves from the world because the world itself does not accept them. And all these people, all these saintly people, all these holy people, though well attested by their faith, did not receive what was promised, since God had foreseen something better for us, that separate from us they should not be made perfect. What is this a reference to? This is a reference to the Old Testament holy people and saints, that they needed to wait a little bit, and that is for the great salvific act of Jesus Christ. And they were given the opportunity to join us, those who are under God's grace, through this act of salvation, that we can be all together, the saints of the Old Testament, the saints of the New Testament, the saints of the entire period of Christian history to this day, since we shall be surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us also lay aside every weight and sin which clings so closely, and let us run with perseverance the race that is set before us. What a beautiful harmony that this expresses. Past and present and future. Since we also are surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses. And this is important considering that the church might be empty right this moment. But whether it were 5 people in church, or no one in church, or 100 people in church, or 1,000 people in church, doesn't matter. We are surrounded at all times by a great cloud of witnesses. And the Greek word for witness is martis, martyrs. People who not only witness and stand for the faith, but those who will go all the way to even give their life if that were to happen, if that circumstance were to arise. So since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, people of faith, people who have let aside the worldly ways, let us also follow their example and lay aside every weight, every burden, anything that might hold us back from constantly floating and flying, if I can use that analogy, towards God, and run with perseverance and endurance the race that is set before us. Why is this phrase important? Because we can have all sorts of distractions from this ultimate race and this ultimate goal. All sorts of distractions, all sorts of obstacles, all sorts of things that get in our way. Whether it's our fault or other people's fault, doesn't matter. The point is that those things get in our way and we can lose our way. So we're asked by today's reading to focus and run with perseverance. Hypomonis is the Greek word. Endurance, patience, the race that is set before us. Looking to Jesus, focusing on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of our faith. Αφορώντες εις τον της πίστεως αρχηγόν και τελειωτήν Ιησούν. Amen. Peace be with you all. Thank you for joining us live. Before you log off, please press every button that's available on there. The like button, the subscribe button, the share button. Do not press the dislike button. And that way we can promote and share the good news and inspirational message that we are offering from our church.